San Salvador. That'll stand for 100 years, 150 years. That's going to be a long-standing institution that will outlive everybody around today. But that's a public good. That's public. The public domain is expanded. I remember back in the 1960s, America celebrating freedom of speech gave us the pushback against the Vietnam War. It also, the United States government put a man on the moon, right? That was a government project. Right. So that was a combination of the two. So here you have President Bukele, who's all about economic freedom and Bitcoin, but he's also expanding the public domain and doing so in a radically transparent manner, a very cost-efficient way. And so I see these trends kind of continuing into the next 5 years of his presidency, and really just being that beacon of hope, that shining city on a hill. And you're going to just see a lot of folks mimicking that and emulating that and saying, if they can do it, why can't we? So it's just become this tremendous power of example that's changing people's minds.
In South America, you have, Chile adopting a communist constitution, Colombia adopting a communist, but then you have like Argentina going to a libertarian. So we're sort of seeing that playing out in real time. I mean, is that how you're framing that? Is how you're seeing it?
Well, like Hayek said in that famous video in the 80s, that Austrian economics is great in theory, but we will never see it in practice because we'll always be subject to fiat money and the central bankers. Only if by some workaround, by some sly mechanism, would we have a money that was separate from the state, could we ever really see if this stuff would work. And at the time, people said, yeah, of course, that'll never happen. But in 2009, it did happen. Money was created that separates money from state. It's totally decentralized money. And that's the key. There's before Bitcoin and after Bitcoin. And El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender, and it matches perfectly with the leader, President Bukele, is somebody who has leaned into that and seen that decentralization and giving power back to the people and letting the people decide. He's always making a reference to this. I'm here for the people. I serve the people. Let the people decide. And has worked wonderfully here. So I think that for the first step for other countries is to understand the role Bitcoin plays in all of this. Obviously, in the communist countries.
So for 2 years now, you've seen what he's done with the ability to lead. And what he's done is quite remarkable. Not only has he transformed the economy through Bitcoin, but he's rebranded the country from the most dangerous on earth to the coolest place that everybody wants to be, right? So he's rid the country of gangs that had plagued the country for decades. He rid the country of these two plunder politics, right? These two parties that plundered the nation over and over. Like when we're doing a lot of work with volcano energy and the Bitcoin mining here, one of the things you note is that a lot of the electric grid was basically plundered for the past 40, 50 years by those two parties. They didn't, any money that came towards investing in the grid, they just stole it. The president of the time would steal it and flee to Nicaragua or flee to the United States. There's one former president of El Salvador that stole $1 billion, and wow. he's in the U.S. being harbored there. So
I saw Zelensky's buying like a $20 million house in Florida now. Same
exactly.
Thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what we had here, and that's what's over. And he's done that in just 2 years. So what we're trying to attract is, yes, we already have like the best and brightest coming here in terms of a lot of Bitcoiners moving here prior to the inauguration, which is June 1st. Then that's qualifies under the Constitution, which was written during the military dictatorship in the 80s, early 80s. So he's doing that in terms of, I don't think there's going to be a color revolution. The U.S. has seen with their own two eyes the remarkable achievements here, and the U.S. ambassador, who was only appointed in 2023, the U.S. ambassador to El Salvador, who he's a really good guy. He's a lifelong diplomat, and so he's less political. For example, like a lot of U.S. ambassadors are, friends of the president. This guy, he's a smart good guy and he's honest, and he said what he saw here, and what he saw here was
institutions. So that looks like there's a highly politicized, kind of coordination going on there. Simultaneously, Liz Warren is saying what she's saying and attacking Bitcoin and so-called crypto. So to your point, does this set up a situation where the public is only allowed to own ETFs, which are a derivative of Bitcoin and cash settled, similar to gold? If GLD gets into trouble, they have the ability to settle in cash. They don't have to send you gold; they can send you fiat money. To your exact phrase, it defeats the purpose. So an ETF, Bitcoin that's settled in cash, is almost point. Nevertheless, it will bring in a lot of capital. Simultaneously, they could say, well, self-custody of Bitcoin, according to Liz Warren, could be banned. So now you have a situation where only the government can own actual Bitcoin, but the public can only own a derivative. Now, would that help El Salvador? Of course, because everybody who has lost their Bitcoin in a tragic boating accident would immediately book a flight to El Salvador. Because the leadership here would recognize this is a huge opportunity.
Bitcoin is like, you're going to lose all your wealth. You're going to end up poor. You're going to end up like, we're going to put photos of homeless bums on the street, just passed out, sleeping under a stairwell. And that's basically your future on the shitcoin. But okay, you knew, and because in a hard money economy, there's nobody there to bail you out from your dumb mistakes. Like, this ain't the US dollar sort of fiat money system here. We don't have our own printed currency to print and bail you out from your dumb mistakes.
Right. Yeah, my fear is you see things like the Restrict Act they put into place, and what Elizabeth Warren's doing is like any interfacing with any piece of software or technology that they deem to be a threat to national security could be illegal. And they're using words like, oh, it's a threat to our financial stability. So is that a threat to our security? Hopefully we're a long way from that.
The Supreme Court won't allow it. They've already done this dozens of times, and every new tyrant in the Senate thinks they could argue differently. But the Supreme Court has always backed free speech.
And people are paying $1 million in donation to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot. As someone, Max and Stacey, both of you guys have been pounding the table on Bitcoin longer than anybody. You guys were the psychopaths screaming at the top of your lungs from the streets. But it just continues to, play out the way that you see it. And a lot of it's because it is that natural emergent process. And this is just sort of how the world works. So anyway, I appreciate you guys sharing that. I really appreciate you guys being down there in El Salvador and banging the drum on that as well. I love to see this pendulum swinging. I love to see this competition being set up. We're all rooting for it to win. Did you have something you want to add, Stacey?
Yes. First, I want to mention, because we haven't said it the whole episode, is during this whole interview, is we're talking like Zoomers now. By the way, we might be. He's a boomer. I'm a Gen X, but we're talking like Zoomers here, because this is the new way of them doing it. They hold their labs in their hand. Even Bloomberg, I've noticed this in my Twitter stream, or my X stream.